So if our website becomes really popular and we're lucky enough to get loads of traffic going to it, we're going to need to auto scale the website and give it more resources. So unfortunately we can't auto scale from the management console. We need to install the command line tools and configure it from there. So the way AutoScaling works is we define an AMI we're going to use. So we're going to use this AMI I've created in here for May the 1st, and we're going to configure our AutoScaling group from that. So we use the AutoScaling group and CloudWatch. We create an AutoScaling group to launch instances from the AMI and from the set AMI, and the AMI is like a mirror image of this running instance, which is this one here. So then CloudWatch monitors the instances in the AutoScaling group, and based on certain conditions it might launch new instances and terminate instances based on conditions. So we can scale up and down based on the demands. If we get a lot of high volume of traffic, we can scale up, and all these instances are behind the load balancer that we define. So the load balancer will send traffic in a round robin pattern to all the instances in the AutoScaling group, and we can control how many instances are in the group based on the traffic going to it. So if any of the instances fails to respond, the load balancer will detect this and launch replacement instances or redirect traffic to healthy instances. So CloudWatch allows us to configure different alarms for different to set AutoScaling policies. So we have different conditions that we can set it based on CPU utilization, traffic, or server load, or there's all sorts of metrics we can use to set these conditions. And then we can launch one extra instance or 20 or 200 extra instances based on what we need. So to get started, I'm just going to launch a straightforward Amazon Linux. We can set up AutoScaling from any instance. It doesn't necessarily need to be the existing instance or a set one. So we can just run the configured from any instance. So we launch this using the defaults, and I'll just pause this video while it initializes and launches. So we can call it whatever we want. And while this is initializing, we've already created a load balancer here, and we've used all the defaults. So we've called it Auto ELB, and there's nothing complicated here. We've used all the defaults, port 80 for HTTP, and we'll add this instance that we're just firing up at the moment. So we're just going to add this new instance we've just set up. Remember, we called it AutoScale 1, so we only need one instance in the load balancer for now. So when our AutoScaling group is set up and configured, we'll add more. The new instances are launched behind this load balancer. So I've connected to this instance using PuTTY as we're using Windows, and we need to log on as root. So we'll change the password, the root password, to something basic because this is only a demo, and this will enable us to log on as root. And so from here we need to set different environment variables. So we use the command export to set environment variables. We're just going to set our secret access key and our normal access key here for the whole session. So I'm going to change these after this video. So obviously you don't want to broadcast this to the world. So just to make sure our command line tools are working, then we can run this command just to make sure everything is okay. So we're still missing something. So I made a stupid mistake there. I forgot to put in export. So let's put in export, and we'll run that command again, and it should work this time. So now we know our command line tools are working. We're in business. So we have our AMI command line tools and API command line tools, and we need to install the AutoScaling command line tools from the URL that you can search for on the AWS website, and just use wget, and that will download it to this instance. And once we have this downloaded, we'll just unzip it and then we'll have this folder. So we do an ls, it's unzipped at the moment, so unzip it, and if you don't want to type it out, just type tab. So now we have the folder there as well, so cd change directory into that folder, where we need to set a few extra environment variables. So just a few commands to get information about our system. So uname with the A flag gives us details of the Linux system, and we can just make sure we're running Java. So we're running Java 1.60, so we need Java for our command line tools. And then from here we're just gonna, you need to have your EC2 cert, the 509 certs, and the private key certs on your instance. So I just uploaded them to a bucket and then wget them onto this instance, which again is probably not best practice, but it's just the handiest way. If you're putting them onto S3, obviously only put them public to the world just for a few minutes, and then restrict the access for security reasons again. So now if we do an ls, they're there, they are where they need to be, and we need to set a few more environment variables now. So just double check Java is installed. We already did, but just see where it is. It's in the user bin directory, and we need to set a few other environment variables. Set the AutoScaling home variable to present working directory, which is pwd is root, and then this folder we install the command line tools to. And we need to also update the path, so we can do that using the export command as well. So it's export path, and we're effectively adding this onto the end of the existing path. And we also need to set, now that we've uploaded the EC2 certs.pem files, we need to set variables for this as well. So it's EC2 cert is equal to this one, and we also need to set a similar command for the private or secret access cert file. So these can be found in the security credentials site of the My Account section on your Amazon Web Services account. And then to make sure our AutoScaling tools are installed and working, we can run this command as and then cmd, and this will give us all our options available for our AutoScaling commands. This shows us that everything is working as it should be. So now we'll run a series of commands to configure the AutoScaling group, and if you want to know anything about these commands, type the command and then --help, and that'll give you all the options for each command and also examples of how they'll be put in use. So for all these commands coming up, that's where you can find more information about them. So we'll just run this first. So the first one is to create the launch configuration. So we're going to call it John Auto from the AMI we went through earlier on. So it's from the management console. It's this AMI here we already looked at. And then the instance type, we're going to launch T1 micros into EU West. So the default is US East, so you have to specify that explicitly, otherwise it'll start launching them in the US East unless you actually specify that. So if we run that command, we should get confirmation it's worked. There we go, it's created the launch configuration group. And the next command we need to run is then to create the AutoScaling group itself. So this is a similar command that you can run the help flag for as well if you're not sure about it. It creates the AutoScaling group. We're going to call it John group from the launch configuration group John Auto we set in the previous command. Availability zone is 1A, and we need to set the minimum size to 3 instances. So the fleet of instances, if you like, is going to be the minimum of 3, maximum of 10, and it's from this load balancer we already created. They're going to launch behind that load balancer we already created. The health check type is load balancer. The grace period is 5 minutes. It's 300 seconds, 5 minutes. And the region is EUS. So if we run this, we should get a similar confirmation message. So it's created that AutoScaling group. Next we need to run the set a policy. So this first policy is for scaling up. So we're going to call it AutoScale group. It's for the group we already defined, John group. The name of this policy is to scale up. We're going to add an instance every time there's a change in capacity. The cooldown period is 5 minutes, and the region is EUS. So this will return a message confirming an ARN. So we're going to need this detail for a command coming up in the future. So ARN I think is Amazon resource something or other, but it's just confirmation. We need this message for future reference, so take note of it. The next one is similar, it's another AutoScaling policy, only this time we're scaling down, and the adjustment is to take away an instance if there's a change in capacity, and this again will return an ARN that we need to take note of for a future command. So just copy this and keep note of it somewhere safe. So this next command is more complicated. It's where is it gone? I might just do a clear screen before we do this. Just clear the screen to make it clear, and we're going to run this command. It's a bit more complicated. And what we're doing here is setting the trigger, so it's alarm type. The description, we're going to scale up. If there's 10% CPU utilization, we'll add an instance. So usually we'd set this to 80 or 70%, but we're just setting it to 10 because for demo purposes we want to see it in action. The threshold is 10%. Comparison is greater than threshold. This is the instance we set up here, so we're going to be measuring through this instance the load on this instance, whether we add or take away stuff from our AutoScaling group. And then this is the ARN we took note of earlier on, so this is the ARN to add an instance, then the region. So if we run this, we should get a message that the alarm has been created, confirmation message. So if this instance goes above 10%, we'll add a new instance to the AutoScaling group, and then we'll need to add a similar trigger to take it away if the CPU utilization goes below 2%. So it's very similar. Again, we just have different parameters. The syntax for this is very fussy and has to be in a particular order, so it's not that complicated otherwise. It's scaled down to 2%, period of 60 seconds, the threshold is 2%, less than, the comparison operator is less than this time. We have evaluation periods of 3 times, I think, in 3 minutes. Then we have an ARN. This is the ARN for the different policy we set, and then the region again. So again, if we run this, we'll get confirmation the alarm is created. So now if we go back into our management console, we can see that the alarm has already been triggered on this, so it's already gone over 10%. So if we just refresh the screen here, we can see our AutoScaling group has set 3 instances, which is the minimum for our AutoScaling group. If you remember, it's a minimum of 3, a maximum of 10. So if we go into our load balancer, we'll see all these instances are added to our load balancer. So that's where we should be able to see this if it refreshes. You can see there, these are the instances in our AutoScaling group. And what we'll do now is, so we've added, these are the 3 in our group, so it takes a few minutes for this to start recognizing. We've created the alarms, but it has no data yet. It just takes a moment to register. We can go into CloudWatch just to confirm our alarms are created. You should be able to see them here. So just click on CloudWatch and you can see them here. This was their scale up one, remember, and their scale down one, so you can see it's already gone through the roof. They're over 10%. So we'll put extra load on it just to make sure, and we should see an extra instance added to the AutoScaling group. We'll see that in action next. So you can see we can monitor the CPU utilization on the instance here under the monitoring tab, and this is the average one here. We can refresh this and see it. But what we'll do is we'll put pressure and put a load onto the server using the BC calculator. So we just type BC, and then we'll run a command on this. We'll run this calculation just to make it busy and to put stress on the instance. So this should put it through the well over 10% CPU utilization, and we should see the alarm go off and extra instances added to the AutoScaling group. We'll have a look at that here in action, hopefully. There's no data yet, it takes a moment or two for it to register, so we'll pause this. So we've set this chugging away and we've made it busy, and we can see that the alarm has now gone off on our alarm has been triggered. We should see an instance added quickly. So the alarm triggers an extra instance to be added to the AutoScaling group. So we can see that there, it's just initializing at the moment, so it's literally starting up, and then when our CPU utilization drops below 1%, it'll take it away again. So you can see how powerful this is. If our traffic gets busy, our site gets busy, we get extra